It's the next to last episode of She-Hulk, and Daredevil finally showed up. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Share your thoughts on the latest episode of She-Hulk, as well as the return of Daredevil. This is a spoiler review, so feel free to spoil away down below in the comment section. A little bit of background on me. Daredevil was probably my favorite show of the last decade. I love all 3 seasons of the show and was heartbroken when they decided to cancel it out of the blue after a very successful 3rd season. And then we heard the rumors that maybe, just maybe, Matt Murdock, Daredevil, was going to show up in Spider-Man No Way Home, and we did. We got like 37 seconds of Matt Murdock, and then the extended cut that they put out a month ago, we got like 15 more seconds of him. But finally in this episode, we actually got to spend some time with Matt Murdock doing lawyer stuff, as well as being Daredevil. He's back. And like many of you, I've been waiting for him to show up in the show because they decided to tease him in one of the trailers before the show debuted, in which case they kind of create that itch in your brain, like Daredevil's out there, knowing that a bunch of us have been waiting 3 years for more of Daredevil, and they create that little itch that you're just waiting for something to scratch it, and finally it happened this week's episode. A bunch of people on Twitter that was like, oh, a bunch of you guys just waiting for Daredevil because they put him in 2 seconds of the trailer. That's on you for your unrealistic expectations. Like, well, I mean, that's not... And I get your point. He's only in 2 seconds of the trailer, and obviously he's not the star of the show or even like a cast member on the show. He's just a guest. But they did put it in a trailer before the show dropped, not a mid-season trailer. And they did that knowing that a bunch of us have literally been waiting years to see this character. So, I mean, they created a tension that they knew would not be paid off and released until the next to last episode. So just blaming people for being excited about something that they teased in a pre-show release trailer, I don't know that I would blame the audience for wanting to see that thing. All of that said, let's get started talking about the episode. And to get right to the point, I had a lot of fun with the episode, and it's safe to say it's my favorite of the first 8 episodes of the season, and unless something really wild and crazy happens in the next episode, I'm guessing it's going to be my favorite episode of the entire season of She-Hulk. And of course, a lot of that is my love for Daredevil. Great to see him again. And then he just brings a certain gravitas to the show just by showing up in it. But it's not just that. It's also, I feel like, the storytelling, the character development here, the moving of the story along, all of that also is what makes this a better episode than what we've been getting the last 7 or so. And I understand that they set out to make a sitcom, but just because they set out to make a sitcom doesn't mean that that was the best way to do things. And I think this episode showed a better blend of the concept. It is this legal sitcom, but it involves people that have superpowers, and some of them want to be superheroes, and some of them are reluctantly kind of pulled into that world. And this show has that, actually balances all of those aspects of the show. Whereas they just went so situational comedy in so many of the last 5-6 episodes that it's tough to not just feel like they're filler. It's a sitcom. That's what sitcoms are. They're just kind of these random little throwaway situations that come up. But when you set up in the first episode of your show a tension in the lead character of, you have superpowers, you should be a superhero. And she's like, no, I don't want to be a superhero. And they very clearly create that tension. And then the whole reason that she reveals herself as She-Hulk is because someone shows up in a courtroom and she has to use her powers. They create that at the beginning of the show and then just take such small little steps in regards to it. But that's at the core of what they set up this show to be. And this episode, I think, showed a better version, a more balanced version of what perhaps this whole season should have looked like, of her trying to come to grips with being both Jennifer as well as She-Hulk, but not just in like her dating life, not just in her like acceptance of herself. You can both have that journey of her trying to figure that out, as well as having her being pulled more and more into the world of the good old-fashioned Spider-Man lesson. With great power comes great responsibility, and our lawyer was shunning that responsibility. So you could have interwoven that much more throughout a bunch of these episodes and not just have so many things about like trademark disputes and who owns a name and about costume designs. Like, just there was such sitcom situations, such sitcom scenarios with nothing superhero in them at all. Like, well, it's a sitcom. That doesn't mean that this was the right way to do it. Doesn't mean it was the right balance. Like, you can't just say it's a sitcom, therefore that excuses everything. I get it. I know what it is. I don't think a lot of it worked very well. And it had always had some charm to it, always had some things I liked about it, but it also felt very often like a show that was very directionless because it was just these weird, goofy little situations, even though they set up in the very first episode serialized elements that made sense to kind of play throughout. And I think this episode very much showed what that could have looked like. It has Jennifer's character arc, her development, her accepting her two different roles. It has the legal stuff inside of it. It has kind of this goofy version of a world of superheroes. It has all of that. And then you get to the end of it, and more so than almost, I guess, any episode since the original one, it plays into that whole conversation that Jennifer and Bruce were having about being able to control your powers. People see you as a villain. They finally called back to that in the next to last episode, setting up a great cliffhanger. So it just had all of the elements in it. Whereas there's like 4 or 5 episodes there in the middle that have like 2 of the elements, 3 of the elements. And a lot of them weren't very focused on the legal stuff. Most of them had none of the superhero stuff. And none of that, even her kind of trying to wrestle with what should she use She-Hulk for, just wasn't even in there. This one had all those elements. Therefore, even before we dive into talking about Daredevil, which we'll of course talk about Daredevil, it was a better balance. And I think because of that, a lot of the humor worked better. I think it worked better when you're even doing her character stuff, when you show her as a lawyer, then you also show her as a person, you show her as the person that's the reluctant hero. You see all of it, and it all plays better in that context. So for all of those reasons, before we even get to Daredevil, I think that this was probably the best episode of the season. But we also have a cherry on the top, and it's quite a nice cherry on top. We also got Daredevil returning to television. And not just a cameo in a movie, actually getting to spend time with him. And pretty much right out of the gate, when he walks into that courtroom, he just brings an energy to the screen of like, I miss this guy. I missed him. And this kind of legal situation starts to play out, and almost immediately, I don't even know why they would do this, but he's also just, even as a lawyer, Matt Murdock comes off much more as like an actual good lawyer than Jennifer does, which seems like a really strange way to do all of this, to design the show as this legal comedy about her and all about her wanting to be awesome at her job and not just be a superhero and be famous for the superpower she has, but because of her work. And then they don't write her as a very good lawyer, where she shows up in the courtroom on a case she doesn't really want to do, but just doesn't do any of the work that you would normally do to build a defense, to even try and figure out like, this guy seems like an idiot. I wonder if he followed the instruction manual. Like, there's no like research into anything. She just showed up and took this guy's word at it that this costume was defective. Even though she loves the work of this other guy, no one else has any complaints. She had no, this doesn't seem like how this would play out. This seems an awful lot like very lazy courtroom writing. Whereas when they write Matt Murdock, suddenly he's saying smart things that lawyers would actually say right out of the gate, and that she should have said right out of the gate. But, of course, we have to contrive the scenario that pulls all these characters together in the courtroom so she can meet Matt Murdock, whom she will be quite fond of and drawn towards. So that's that's some of why this show's frustrating to me, is like, yeah, it's a legal sitcom. The legal stuff is mostly really stupid and poorly written. Like, these don't feel like, these aren't compelling or interesting cases, and they're written as if someone doesn't understand that lawyers aren't morons. So that happens, and then kind of pick up soon afterwards, and Matt and Jennifer meet up at the bar and start having a conversation. And even there, it just has a certain... It just feels like the sort of thing I wish had happened earlier in the season. The sort of thing where someone is speaking to her. Like, this episode as a whole, I feel like this should have been episode 5 or 6 of this type of development in her journey of accepting her role. Her, with great power comes great responsibility. Her moving along in that fashion. I think this needed to have like episode 5, 6, midpoint of the season. Bring someone along that can speak to her, that's not her cousin, that she can't just kind of dismiss them, and can kind of explain to her a worldview. This idea of Jennifer helps when the law can, and when the law fails, you have She-Hulk. And you put that in her head earlier in the season, so it gets to play out more, and you get to see the journey kind of take place, as opposed to like just doing it right at the end. But even that dialogue reminding you of how compelling of a character Matt Murdock was on his own show and is still in this show, and of just a nice little moment. The sort of stuff that, yeah, this is what this show could have been the whole season. And just right off the bat, they had nice little chemistry on screen. That's what happens when you're able to bring in a guy that was able to lead his own show, put him up against someone else that's very good at leading her own show. I think that the actress is not my issue with the show at all. She's doing a great job, and she's quite charming. So put them together, and just has a nice little energy to it between the two of them. Kind of jump ahead to their alter egos end up meeting. As it turns out, the Leapfrog is actually not such a great guy after all. Has kidnapped someone, and so Daredevil is trying to catch him as he's the bad guy. And he calls his lawyer, who shows up as She-Hulk, to try and defend him from whoever this maniac person is. And we get a little bit of a fight between She-Hulk and Daredevil, the man with very human strength, but superhuman acrobatic abilities, because all this kind of stuff that he can do and flippy things that he can do, and the lady with super strength. And they put that clip out early, and Twitter does what Twitter does, and everyone picks like kind of these two opposite sides on it. And people are like, why suddenly we got Daredevil doing CGI acrobatics? Why couldn't they bring back the stunt team? Like, absolutely love the stunt work and action from that show. I wasn't bothered at all by the CGI acrobatics. It fits the show that we're watching right now, the tone of this one. I hope when he gets his own show, I don't want to see the CGI acrobatics. I'd much rather see the stunt team come in and do that again. But at the same time, it's not actually like out of character for Daredevil from the comics. These are what the comic panels look like, is him doing this sort of stuff. And in the cartoonish nature of this show, it fits. It actually fits in this show. And so they start having their little fight, and there's that little part in there where he starts quipping about my ass is still in my hands or something, like whatever it was. I don't need quippy Daredevil. I knew that was going to happen. It wasn't as bad as I was expecting. For the most part, they were able to like balance who that characterization was before with the tone of this show, while most part they maintained it. He has a couple of those little quips in there that I'm like, oh, we don't have to do. Not everyone has to be MCU quippy. Like he had his dry humor even kind of when he showed up into the as a lawyer in the courtroom, and he goes, I had trouble parking, and like the characters always had a dry sense of humor. That's not the same thing as being quippy and that MCU stuff that you get a little bit of that. Not crazy about all that. But so they have their little fight, and eventually, you know, she rips his mask off, and it's like, it's you? Why are you trying to attack my client? And why are you dressed up as the devil? It's not the way to get people think that you're here dressed as the devil. That was a pretty good line. Pretty nice little moment there. And so there's some little banter in that I had fun with, but she realizes that her client's actually the bad guy and has kidnapped someone, so they have to go in and try and save the day and rescue our clothes dresser guy. And so they go to do their big fight, and right as they're about to go in, him as the guy that has been doing this for years and years and years says what he thinks is best. And here's the part, like, that this is the smug stuff that I don't know why they keep doing with her in the writing, because there's all sorts of moments where she's fun and charming and she has like banter with people and it fits and it makes sense. And then now this is the second time where she's talking to someone who's an expert in a field. She is brand new to it, and she's talking as if she knows better than them. So she has actively chosen to not be a superhero, fight crime, and take out thugs. She's talking to someone who has chosen to. And he's like, all right, we should go in stealth. I'll do this. It'll da-da-da-da-da. And she's like, I'll just go in there and take him out. He's like, I don't think that's the right way to go. That's not the best way to do it. She goes, I'm going to, like, and she's like, doesn't listen to him at all. And I said in my initial review, there's this smugness that they occasionally give to her. There was when she's talking to Bruce, it's there, and now it's here where she's talking to Daredevil, that it's not witty banter, it's not people playful back and forth. They're literally talking about fighting criminals to try and rescue someone. He is an expert at this. She has actively chosen not to do it at all. And she's talking down to him and explaining to him how to do it and being dismissive of him and talking as if she's better and knows better. Like, I don't know why they keep doing this, because they just had 7 episodes straight where she didn't have this really weird character trait. But when talking to established superheroes that are experts, literally experts in the thing, they add that in. I don't know why. I don't know why they keep doing it. Like, it's a really unpleasant trait to give any character. And I mentioned this way back in my early spoiler reviews where I had people on Twitter being like, oh, you're okay with Tony Stark being smug, but not her. Well, Tony Stark wasn't smug when he was in a cave. He wasn't smug to the guy that saved him. Oh, you're okay with Doctor Strange being smug. Well, Doctor Strange wasn't smug after he discovered this realm of mystical arts. He's teach me. When he realizes this person knows more than him, teach me. He didn't talk smug to the people that knew more than him. That's what I'm talking about. And once again, like, you're literally talking to someone that can give you advice, help you balance out your life. Why? Why are you arguing with him? Why do you think you know better? And even to this point, she destroyed a parking garage in the scene before this. She's about to do a bunch of damage here. Like, she just didn't listen to people. I don't, like, there's a way to have her, the same conversation. Like, couldn't I just go in there and tear these guys up? Like, says it cocky, like, hey, remember, I got super strength. I can just go in there. They can't hurt me. And not do it in a way that is where she's just utterly dismissive. That, I have no idea why they're writing her that way. But, so then we get Daredevil in action, stealth mode, taking dudes out, martial arts, fighting dudes, all that stuff that I enjoyed. They didn't bring back their stunt team, it doesn't appear, so it's not quite as fun as it used to be, but doesn't change the fact that it's amazing to get to see him doing his thing, once again, beating dudes up. And she joins in, smashes the ceiling, takes some guys out even faster, and they go in, save the day, and because they saved the day, Mr. Costume Guy is, in fact, going to help her after all. And, you know, that fun, nice details. So, anyway, so then later that night, Daredevil, She-Hulk are talking. they decide to go back to her apartment for some fun, and she gets hooks up with him back at the her place, and then they have a scene where he does the walk of shame. Twitter seemed to have a lot of fun with that. I get the joke, I get why it's amusing, but I don't. Some of those things where you just start to like compromise the integrity of your universe, where Daredevil is like walking down the middle of the street in his costume. This doesn't quite feel like it makes a lot of sense. It's just a sight gag that's amusing. Fair enough, but okay, come on. Some jokes, even if they're great ones, I don't know that you have to do them. But so finally she meets a great guy. He unfortunately lives on the exact opposite end of the country. But it's nice for her to actually have a big gigantic win. And the episode closes out where they start breaking the fourth wall about, wait a minute, should the episode be over with? Wait, we have one more kind of big reveal in here, and you're waiting for what is it going to be. So we end up going to the gala where she wins her award for best female lawyer, and then for some reason they decide to like way overcook the commentary again of what's it like to be a female lawyer. I don't know where they're going with that. I don't know what. Like, let's just throw in weird random jokes about how women are interviewed by men or something like that. Okay, that's why, I don't know, but for some reason the show likes to do things like that. And then it ends with, right as she's giving her speech, this group of online trolls out to destroy her reputation finally enact their plan, and as she's giving her speech, they start playing like camera footage from inside of her bedroom of her hooking up with dudes, and she loses her temper, freaks out, smashes the TV, everyone's afraid of her, run out of the room, and the police at the end of it are there to arrest her. And she looks at the camera, breaks the fourth wall, and looks nervous, as if she finally realized, oh, this is what Bruce was talking about. And I feel like, once again, this is like, this stuff I wish happened 2-3 episodes earlier, so we actually got to play it out more. We got one episode left where she has to work through all of this, catch the bad guys, and whatever our close off for the season is, we have to do all of that. We got one episode, and it feels like there's a lot more to unpack from everything that happened in this episode. She actually starts to have a vision for, oh, this is how both Jennifer and She-Hulk can serve. Oh, gotcha. Okay. And that important lesson of you have to learn how to control this. Once people see you as a monster, they don't unsee it. She's like, oh, I can control my temper. I do it every day. Okay, you're talking to a guy that's actually a Hulk. Might want to listen to him. Doesn't listen to him, so she gets triggered in this context. And I mean, it's kind of one of those ones where the way that the scene plays rings very strange to me, because you're in a moment where everyone in the room is watching video that people clearly set up cameras in her home and invaded her privacy to try and shame her. And their evidence of this is just like, she hooks up with a guy. Here's how you know that she's a bad person. So it's not a particularly compelling argument. It's just something that would be very embarrassing for a person on stage. Everyone in the room would see that, then go, "Oh, they broke into cameras in her home? What is going on here?" And then someone turns into a monster in front of you, is angry and smashing things. Of course, you would freak out and you'd want to leave. But there's like a lot of emotions that should have been in that room that weren't portrayed in the episode. And I know they're just trying to make the point of, see, she lost her temper. See, it happened. See, everyone's out to get her now. How is she going to get out of this mess? But it's like a much more nuanced situation than that. I don't know why they didn't play the nuance of it, which I guess I'm not actually surprised they didn't play the nuance, because that's not really what this show has ever been interested in doing. But it seems like there's more interesting things to pull out of that moment of all the ways that people would respond, as opposed to just do this very heavy-handed, she's embarrassed, she got triggered, people are afraid of her now. Okay, there's more to it than that, I think. But they close out on that note where now her public image has been tarnished now. Which I don't know if they're going to do a jumbo episode, which I don't even know what a jumbo episode on this show would be, since the longest is still under 40 minutes and has 7 minutes of credits. but there's a lot to do with just one episode left. So I don't understand the way that they've decided to space out this season. I don't understand the way they've decided to design the episodes. And the episodes that are best, the episodes that I think pull together the most, are the ones that aren't just throwaway little sitcom things. They're ones that actually move her character arc along, progress the story, while dealing with a little situation. That's a better version of this show. And they just had too many that it's just about the situation. Just about the goofy little thing of her hooking up with people or trying to get clothes that fit, trying to gain access to her name back. And I think all along, I think they should have followed much more the template of this episode. You could have explored ideas better. You could have gone deeper with her actual arc. And I think all of the humor's better when it has more meat to it, when it's tied to something more relevant than just a pass-away, throwaway little gag. So, I don't know. So, in general, I think easily the best episode of the season. There's a ton of things here that were very cool to get to see. Love seeing Daredevil again. Love seeing Matt Murdock in the courtroom again. And at the same time, it's an episode that I think put a spotlight on what's not working for a lot of people for this season. That they just took too long to progress plot points. And then the reason this one's more satisfying is it did progress plot points. It did go back to stuff in the first episode. It did follow up on what was set up very early on. So if there's a season 2, hopefully they learn from lessons from this episode, not from whatever episode 5 was or episode 6 was. This is the one right here to learn from, of what works in the storytelling, how to progress an arc, how to I don't know. It's both the episodes and it's the pacing of all of it. If this episode is number 6, that gives much more compelling stuff to happen in episodes 7, 8, 9. You treat this cliffhanger at the end of it, you think in terms of kind of a season as a 3-act structure. So episodes 1 through 3 really kind of set up all the conflicts, the character arcs, and then 4, 5, 6, you start living out the scenario of her as this now famous lawyer, but she wants to be Jennifer famous, not She-Hulk famous, and you play out, kind of explore all of that, and then end of episode 6, you have something like this happen, to where her reputation is broken, there's some villains out there, and then you have this arc of her fixing her reputation, accepting her role as both Jennifer and She-Hulk, but you get to play all of it out. You get a little bit of time with everything, not meander, all set up in episode 1, meander for 7 episodes, and then pull it all together in the last 2. That's weird. That is a weird way to do it. Anyway, what did you think about the episode? How are you feeling about the season in general? Was this a much Daredevil worth it for waiting to watch him? Were you annoyed that you didn't even need Daredevil in the show? Let me know all that fun stuff down below in the comment section, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.